Hello, everyone. I'm Lana Zach. Officials are giving an update on the response to Tuesday's bridge collapse, and President Biden announced that he will visit Baltimore next week. Let's go ahead and dip into the news conference and hear what they have to say.
Good afternoon. Let me first start by saying again and always that we're praying for all the victims of the Key Bridge collapse and also their loved ones. We continue to pray for you, and we always will. Continuamos orando por ustedes y lo seguiremos haciendo. I also want to thank again and always our remarkable first responders and all of our emergency personnel who have been working around the clock in advance of everything today and take care and leading on our response. And I want to thank everyone who has been part of the response, from the private sector to the public sector, to the armed forces, to philanthropy, to all parts of society, and all of those who have offered prayers from all over the world. I want to let you know that your prayers have been felt. All who have offered kind words, I want to say that your kind words have been heard. And also, I want to thank Trade Point Atlantic. This horrific human tragedy was also an economic catastrophe. In the early hours, it was Trade Point who said, "Let us help." The Port of Baltimore is one of the busiest ports in the world, and the collapse of the Key Bridge has shut down vessel traffic to the port. Trade Point Atlantic immediately began mobilizing and accepting some cargo ships from vessels that were bound from the Port of Baltimore, immediately began preparing for those arrivals, and they accepted their first shipment of cargo bound for the port just yesterday. We will continue working closely with their team, and we are grateful for their support and grateful for their leadership. Now, today, I will provide updates on the 4 directives I've issued to our team. As a reminder, the directives are: first, we need to continue to focus on recovery, because we have to bring a sense of closure to these families. Second, we need to clear the channel and open the vessel traffic to the port, because the health of the Maryland economy and the national economy depend on it. Third, we need to take care of all the people who have been affected by this crisis. That means the families, that means the workers, that means the businesses, that means the first responders, that means everybody. And fourth, we need to and we will rebuild the Key Bridge. So first, on our recovery efforts. As I mentioned yesterday, we need to do more work clearing the channel to move forward. This is a remarkably complex operation, and our focus needs to be on unity of command and unity of effort. Every morning, we have a unified command briefing, which includes State Police, the U.S. Coast Guard, the Army Corps of Engineers, our federal delegation, and other leaders who are central to this mission. Now, during that briefing, Colonel Butler, the superintendent of the Maryland State Police, discussed that the conditions in the water makes it unsafe for divers. But as soon as those conditions change, his divers will go back in the water. Second, on clearing the federal channel and opening vessel traffic to the port. As of this morning, I've been briefed by the Maryland Department of Transportation on clearing wreckage and moving forward. Our team went out with the Coast Guard just a few hours ago, including the Coast Guard Commandant, to survey the damage, to see the wreckage up close, to see a freight that is nearly the size of the Eiffel Tower, and to see that same freight with the Key Bridge resting on top of it, to see shipping containers that were ripped in half as if they were paper mache, to know that out there you have to navigate high winds and electric wires. To go out there and to see it up close, you realize just how daunting a task this is. you realize how difficult the work is ahead of us. With a salvage operation this complex, and frankly, with a salvage operation this unprecedented, you need to plan for every single moment, and every time you take action to move a piece of wreckage, you understand that that requires you to reassess the situation. So when I led soldiers in combat, I knew that preparation was everything. You do not go into the field of battle without getting the intelligence that you need first. So as the mission continues, you need to stay frosty, you need to reassess, and you need to adapt. That's the mindset the Army Corps is applying with their partners in Unified Command. We have the best inspectors, the best surveyors, and the best engineers in the world working and setting up and executing a plan of action right here in Maryland. And I've been informed by the U.S. Navy that they are supplying us with 4 heavy lift cranes. 2 have already arrived, 1 arrives tonight, and the 4th is arriving on Monday. One of the cranes is called the Chesapeake 1000, and it can lift about 1,000 tons. But the big part, and one of the challenges, is that the key bridge, which sits on top of the vessel right now, that weight is somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 tons. So our team needs to cut that truss into sections in a safe, in a responsible, and in an efficient way before it can lift those pieces out of the water. This crane that we're looking at is massive. The thing we also know is this: so is the challenge ahead of us. So in the coming weeks, we expect to have the following entities inside of the water: 7 floating cranes, 10 tugs, 9 barges, 8 salvage vessels, and 5 Coast Guard boats. I've said it before, I will say it again, and I will keep on saying it. This is not just about Maryland. This mission is not just about Maryland. And what we're talking about today is not just about Maryland's economy. This is about the nation's economy. The port handles more cars and more farm equipment than any other port in this country. At least 8,000 workers on the docks have jobs that have been directly impacted by this collapse. Our economy depends on the Port of Baltimore, and the Port of Baltimore depends on vessel traffic. Maryland's economy and Maryland's workers rely on us to move quickly. But that's not just Maryland. The nation's economy and the nation's workers are requiring us to move quickly. Third, on taking care of our people. I want to talk a little bit about the work that we're doing with the Maryland legislature. I want to thank Speaker Adrian Jones, Senate President Bill Ferguson, and Minority Leader Steve Hershey. They have been in touch with our team since day one. I also want to thank Delegate Lou Clippinger, Senator Johnny Ray Saling, and other members of the District 6 and District 46 teams. And I want to thank all of the Maryland legislators who have reached out and offered their support. Legislators, frankly, on both sides of the aisle. And I want to thank our federal delegation, too, to include Jamie Raskin, who was here earlier, but unfortunately cannot be here now. But to the members of the Maryland General Assembly, we know this: we are 10 days away from the conclusion of this legislative session, and there is a lot of work to do. The top priority in that work is going to be finalizing our budget. My administration proposed a responsible budget that makes important investments in housing and childcare and environmental protection and transportation. So now it is vital that the House and the Senate find compromise as soon as possible, pass the budget, and provide certainty at this challenging and uncertain time. We also need to ensure that we pass legislation to support the families and the victims of the bridge collapse and everyone else who has been affected by this emergency. I'll be proposing the creation of a permanent state scholarship for the children of surviving spouses of transportation workers who lost their lives on this job. We will continue to push for legislation that seeks to protect workers like the 6 victims of the Key Bridge collapse. I've also asked the General Assembly to ensure that any legislation we work on provides the flexibility our administration needs to support port workers, businesses, and our transportation network. We cannot possibly find every answer to every problem in the next few days before session ends, but we can give the state the ability to respond over the coming months. Fourth, on rebuilding. As I said yesterday, we cannot rebuild the bridge until we have cleared the wreckage. I've always believed that you never learn anything about anybody when times are easy. If you really want to understand someone's mettle, watch them when it's hard. Watch them when it's difficult. Watch them when the stakes are high. Well, that time is now, and we are going to rise to meet this moment. Because we are Maryland tough, and because we are Baltimore strong. So, in this moment, I'm going to hand it off to the U.S. Coast Guard, over to Admiral Gilreath. And then after that, we'll be briefed by Colonel Pinchason from the Army Corps of Engineers, the Maryland State Police, the Maryland Department of Transportation, EPA Administrator Ortiz, Congressman Kwesi Nfume, and County Executive Johnny Olszewski. Admiral Gilreath.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. I'm Rear Admiral Shannon Gilreath, speaking on behalf of the Unified Command. As I mentioned last night, our #1 priority of the Unified Command is to reopen the Port of Baltimore. And to do that, we've broken that into 3 phases. #1 phase is reopen the shipping channel. #2 is remove the ship. And #3 is to remove the debris from the bridge from the rest of the waterway. We are beginning to make progress on those phases. In the phase 1, we talked about that we need to do the assessments of the bridge, both above the water line and beneath the water. Those assessments continue. As the governor said, we were out there today and we could see the engineers and the divers and the survey boats out there on the water in these difficult wind conditions, doing their job, doing their work to assess that bridge, to figure out how we can cut it up into the pieces we need to be able to lift. And back at the Unified Command, the governor, the commandant, all the elected officials, they could see those engineers working on those very plans. Engineers from the Army Corps of Engineers, Navy Supervisor of Salvage. We had state engineers there. There were some private engineers helping us, and we had some Coast Guard engineers there. And they're all working diligently to figure out that right plan to be able to break that bridge up into the right size pieces that we can lift. And the second part of that is we need to get the heavy lift equipment here. And we've been telling you that those cranes are on their way, and that equipment's on that way. And behind us, you can see the first of those things that are arriving. They're arriving, and they're going to continue to arrive for the next several days. And we're going to continue that planning so that we will be ready to be able to take advantage of that as soon as possible and do it safely. I'll turn it over to Colonel Pinchason.
Okay. Governor Moore, elected officials, thank you so much for having us here. As we just transition to the most critical mission that we have to open and restore the channel, to clear the shipping channel and open the Port of Baltimore, we've now begun surveying and conducting engineer analysis and assessing in order for us to conduct the integrated salvage operations within the channel and also to refloat the vessel, as well as remove the wreckage of the bridge. However, the top priority for all the equipment that we're marshaling right here is going to be focused on clearing the channel. Now, that doesn't happen overnight, and the work that our team is doing is just phenomenal. I can't say enough about the team that we've assembled here. Kind of had a little bit of a dress rehearsal when we did the Ever Forward, and that's the same team that we have on the ground. That industry muscle memory, that incredible wealth of knowledge, expertise, skills, experience, all those lessons are being applied here, and it's a really powerful partnership. I can't say enough about what those folks are doing. We should all be super proud to see state, federal partners, DoD partners coming together. It should give the Port of Baltimore, the people of Baltimore, the state of Maryland, and our nation so much confidence to know that they have the right people here to execute this mission. We're going to be doing that safely and as quickly as possible. So with that, sir, I'll turn it over.
Thanks.
Good afternoon. I'm Colonel Roland Butler, Secretary of the Maryland Department of State Police. To build on what Colonel Pinchason just told you, there's an incredible synergy going on within the unified command with everyone working together, working hard towards a common goal. You heard the governor's objectives. We're working hard to accomplish those objectives. The MSP has a team of divers on standby waiting for the first word that it is safe and it is clear to go in and examine what's beneath the wreckage and recover any of these individuals that perished in this unfortunate incident. In addition to that, the MSP Aviation Command is providing aerial support to all the parties involved, be it surveying, photographs, whatever. We're all looking forward to doing whatever we can to help this come to a conclusion. The Aviation Command has also reached out to the FAA to establish a tactical flight restriction area. That area begins 3 miles, nautical miles, in every direction from the center span of the bridge and goes up 1,500 feet. We cannot impress upon the public enough. Please stay away from that area with drones or any other type of equipment like that. If there are any violations of that airspace, law enforcement remains poised, federal, state, and local partners, to act upon any of those violations, locate those individuals, and bring them to justice. The most important thing is that you exercise patience, understanding, compassion for the people lost in this, and allow the workers to do their job safely and effectively. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Paul Wiedefeld, Secretary of Transportation. Thanks to the $60 million that approved yesterday by the Federal Highway Administration, the department is working closely with the Coast Guard and the Corps of Engineers on salvage operations. In fact, a team...
Well, we've been watching Maryland Governor Wes Moore and other officials give an update on the Key Bridge collapse. The governor emphasized the need to bring a sense of closure to victims' families. He also announced a scholarship for the children of the deceased bridge workers. Those recovery efforts are being hampered by approximately 4,000 tons of bridge currently resting atop the ship. That needs to be removed before progress can be made. The governor also emphasized that this mission isn't just about Maryland. The economic impacts affect the entire country, since the Port of Baltimore is responsible for more cars and farm equipment than any other port in the country.